We are talking the bizarrely named movie Fish Piss. Now this is an ultra low budget movie. The budget was around less than $1,000. It was a kind of partly crowdfunded movie and was actually shot on VHS to give it this kind of like retro kind of vintage movie. And the story of this film is focused on this guy who has some type of mental illness, and he is seeing things and responding to things that simply aren't there. He is kind of having some type of kind of mental breakdown, and we see it primarily from his point of view, and he imagines, or maybe that there's this real kind of like fish monster that is living in this kind of nearby lake and compels our main guy to sacrifice his friends to this kind of fish monster so this fish monster can eat the friends. In return, the fish monster lets this guy jack the fish monster off and produce ejaculate, which this guy then drinks. That's a kind of a drug. Along with that, we have this kind of other kind of hallucinations about this guy who's got all these conspiracy theories about broccoli, a few other kind of like sort of characters kind of here and there, and that's pretty much the film. So yeah, let's discuss, shall we? Legitimately, what can we say, if anything, works in this film? There's an idea for a psychological story about a guy having a mental breakdown, having hallucinations, and how it affects him, and obviously the negative outcome that has on him and people around him. And I think the movie has an alright idea about that kind of thing. I think the movie, as a kind of method of media, trying to, you know, tell us or show us as an audience this guy's kind of mental struggles by having like quick cuts, weird kind of transitions, these little hallucinations about different kind of things, almost playing sometimes like a kind of TV ad commercial and things like this. The movie does, I think, an okay job of trying to enunciate to us as an audience about this guy's kind of mental state of mind. And yeah, it's weird, it's bizarre, it has this kind of retro vintage feel to it, primarily because obviously it's filmed using VHS. So fans of kind of like the, you know, the 80s shot and video and that kind of stuff may get a kick out of that kind of visual kind of style. But let's be real. Let's talk about the reality of this movie and what doesn't work. I mean, it is a low budget movie that, in its own words, is art house, and I think that's like a little bit of a kind of like, it's an art house movie, it's meant to be weird and bizarre and therefore critic proof. Let's be realistic, this movie is an incoherent mess of a film. I think it has a seed of a good idea, I think it has an interesting video style, but does it work as a film? No, it doesn't. Let me break it down for you. Okay, so I understand this is a very low budget movie. If you're familiar with this channel, you will know I review many low budget movies, and I've reviewed movies with a lower budget than this. But there are things you can do to make an interesting narrative, make an interesting film without costing you any money. For example, you can write interesting characters. You can have these characters have a journey in the film. You can write a narrative which introduces you to the characters, sets their kind of plight out, shows you the kind of the journey that they want to go on and the reasons they're doing it and the motivations and things like that. The film has a script which you can do, which takes you on a journey. This movie doesn't really do any of that. It just kind of wants to get straight in and kind of show this kind of like weird and bizarre people drinking kind of fish piss and things like that, really without any type of really narrative thread. I mean, I get that it just wants to be like this kind of like shocking value and things like that. You know, so it doesn't to me work as a film. It has an idea, I think, and I think it kind of starts to have an idea in regards to showing you someone's kind of mental decline. And I think it could have worked better. I think it has at least the first few steps of that of a good idea, but the actual kind of the narrative that surrounds it is just non-existent. Now, again, I understand the budgetary constraints, but this movie just looks awful. And it's just kind of like the fish costume is literally a shop bought costume, and it's the same one that you would have seen in quite a famous meme. And you know, it's again, I get that it's meant to be like a visual representation of someone's kind of psyche and stuff like that, but it's just like, you know, what am I watching, to be honest with you? There's not really any, there's not really any type of genuine kind of, you know, inventive kind of ways that they could have used, like low budget effects and stuff. I recently reviewed one called Swamp Woman, which was again a very low budget movie, probably a little bit higher budget than this, to be fair, but you know, you're using still the kind of the things you've got to kind of, you know, makeshift you know, a kind of a movie that is going to be appealing. I mean, look at the original Evil Dead, things like that. It can be done. This movie has no real kind of a visual flair outside of this kind of retro kind of feel to it. Again, the acting isn't particularly good. The story is kind of uncompelling and kind of just kind of like various kind of scenes. From what I understand, that this movie was filmed by people just pissing around, having a laugh, probably getting drunk and high on set and things like that. And it's just kind of a dull movie. It's just like not interesting, not compelling, and all rounds just kind of like not worth your time, I don't think. Again, I've used this kind of comparison a few times, but if you've seen the films where they've had a, you know, we've watched a movie, and in that movie there's a scene where people are watching TV and there's some crappy horror on the TV. This looks like one of those films that we're playing like the movie within a movie. It's just kind of not interesting. You know, the frustrating thing I think with this movie, it does have an alright idea. The seed of a movie is there. Had it been, you know, had it been kind of like expanded upon, had a little bit more kind of thought involved in it, and I don't know if the VHS kind of aesthetic really works. It just kind of, it's very, very dreary and dull movie, to be honest. 2 out of 10. This was I was literally trying not to fall asleep in this film. Yeah, not really for me. I guess that you'll find plenty of positive reviews from people who are, you know, tangentially related to this film, and if you like it, that's great, but looking at it objectively, it's a 2 out of 10 for me. This one wasn't good. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.